Hi everyone, super excited to have you guys back for another bonus episode for our 26 Days to Greatness Challenge. I'm your host, Miko, and today with us we have Joshua Spodek, who is a 3 times TEDx speaker and a #1 bestselling author for his book, Initiatives and Leadership, Step by Step. And he's also the host of his award-winning podcast called Leadership and the Environment, and I believe Josh just shared with me earlier before we went on camera that just became a #1 ranking in leadership on Amazon. And then he's also a professor at NYU teaching leadership and entrepreneurship. So with that being said, I'm so honored to have Josh here today with us to talk about leadership, such an important topic right now. So with that being said, Josh, thank you for being here today.
Miko, thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
Yay,
Actually, I've been looking forward to it for a while.
Me too. So, and I know Josh, you shared with me right before we got on camera, it's like you just saw your 3rd TEDx Talk to go live, and I'm so excited for you and congratulations. So before we get into like the good stuff, the leadership part of this interview, why don't you share with our audience a little bit more about who you are? How did you get to, specializing in doing leadership work and all that fun stuff?
Okay, yeah, everybody asks me, Josh, your background doesn't suggest that you would teach leadership, because they know I have a PhD in physics, I have an MBA, and they think what is accurate, which is I grew up very, very nerdy, and I always wanted to be part of the cool crowd. I wanted to be, not nerdy, but somewhere in college, I always tried to hide it. I tried to act like, I'm not a science person, I'm not a math person, but everyone could tell. Finally in college, I was like, you know what? I love this stuff. And I decided to major in physics, and no one majors in physics. And so I went and got a full PhD, and there's a satellite orbiting the Earth that I helped build. And I wrote a thesis on all this stuff. But partway through, I realized research wasn't really what I wanted to do. It was physics 50 years ago was what I wanted to do, but now it wasn't really what I wanted to do. It was the mid-90s, and some friends of mine and I started talking about starting a company. Eventually, I came up with an idea that was my invention. I wrote the patents, business plan, and I just barely finished the PhD, started my first company, and that was the late 90s, early 2000s. We expanded all around the world, and it was great, but we went right into and got squeezed out by the investors as well as went bankrupt. Very painful experience. And if you want me to cry, you could ask me about that. But instead, I went back to get my MBA. That's where I learned that there were classes in leadership. And before that, I didn't think that you could learn leadership. I thought, Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, they were just born that way. And, or Václav Havel was just born that way. But no, you could learn this stuff. After I graduated, I started trying to practice what I'd learned. And I realized you can learn it, but what they taught me was the principles of leadership, but not how to lead. I would think to myself, I'd go into a meeting and I think, I know leadership. I'm going to do this and they'll do that, and I'll do this and they'll do that. And we'll come to this great deal and we'll have this great thing. And I'd walk in the room. And usually it was when I made first eye contact with someone, everything would leave my head. And I feel like I know what I was supposed to do, just be yourself, or, all these principles. And what I found out, luckily for me at the time, a friend of mine was starting a school called Science Leadership Academy in Philadelphia. And he had gone to teachers college and he really knew education. And he taught me about active, experiential, project-based learning. And I realized when you have a field that's active, emotional, expressive, performance-based, like leadership, there are lots of fields like that. If you want to learn how to play the piano, no one lectures how to play piano. You got to put your fingers on the keyboard. If you want to learn to dance or sing, you got to practice the basics. Anyway, so at that time I decided I'm going to start teaching leadership the way that you learn performance-based things. And so I started teaching the basics. And next thing I knew, I had a practice of coaching. I had a book. NYU hired me to start teaching leadership there. And I started doing something that no one had done. As far as I know, no one's doing this. Teaching leadership through the basics. Now, up until about 5 years ago, so that was like 15 years ago when I started. 5 years ago, on my own, I started realizing that the environment very important, and it's becoming the issue of our times. And I gave myself a series of personal challenges to act on my environmental values. One of them, for example, was to see if I could go without packaged food for a week. And I was very surprised to find I could. And I thought it was going to be possible. I didn't really know how to cook from scratch. And when I actually tried it, it took a little while, but I learned to cook from scratch. My food became more convenient, cheaper, more friendly, more people came over. And most of all, it was more delicious. And more than the physical stuff, what happened, inside, I learned that acting on my environmental values would improve my life. That was the mental model that I had. So about a year later, when I learned that flying New York, LA round trip warmed the globe about a year's worth of driving, I thought, living in Manhattan, I don't have a car. I thought I must be polluting a lot less than most people. But no, it turns out my flying was putting me way over the limit that the IPCC recommends in the Paris Agreement. And I thought, I wonder if I could go without flying for a little while, just like I went without packaged food for a while. And I challenged myself, let's see, a week without flying, that's not meaningful. A month without flying, still a little short. Could I go for a year without flying? Now, everyone I say this to thinks exactly what I thought. I got family, I got to earn a living, I want adventure. But I was like, am I going to try to live by my values or not? And so I gave myself this challenge to go for a year without flying. Next thing I know, a few months in, completely against my expectations, I'm finding my life better. Well, now with the COVID, everybody's gone without flying for a little while. But I found again, it was joyful. It created community. It created connection, the opposite of what I expected. But once I got it, then I thought, this message is missing. So I took these two big things in my life. There was, professionally, I was coaching and teaching leadership. Personally, I was acting more sustainably. And I realized there is virtually no leadership in the area of the environment today. I don't count telling people what to do, facts and figures, doom and gloom as leadership. That's just facts and figures, doom and gloom. And so for the past roughly 5 years, I've been, most of my coaching and workshops is on mainstream leadership and mainstream entrepreneurship, teaching and coaching that. But what's ramping up, especially since COVID, is how to lead when we can no longer ignore the environment as we've been doing for so long. And it's a tremendously emotion-laden field. People feel shame and guilt and lots of other things. And I've been doing it for 5 years intensely, and more than that, more casually. So I have a bit of advantage over many people in how to help people in this area. I've been talking for a long time. I hope that wasn't too long of a story. But it's all to bring my leadership in the area of the environment is my main focus now. And for a lot of people.
And thank you so much for sharing. I love the story about you, challenging yourself to really live in your core values when it comes to taking care of the environment and not flying since 2016, I believe you mentioned. March 20.
I just started my 5th year of not flying. And with the no packaged food, I threw out my garbage once in 2019, once in 2018, and once in 2017. Yeah, so I get all fresh fruits and vegetables, almost all from farmers markets, CSAs. I get stuff from the bulk food section. And I can cook faster now than I used to. And I go to the farm and meet my farmers. And yeah, it's amazing. If not for the virus, I was supposed to go to Sweden to start a pop-up restaurant with one of the top 50 chefs in the world, but got called off because of the virus.
That's so exciting. It's kind of like, go ahead.
And it was to give also, there's a big food and sustainability event that it was connected to. So I was going to speak to like thousands of people.
Wow. It's like a whole new road kind of opens up when you challenge yourself to do things that are beyond what you used to know. But I think this is so interesting, Josh, because first of all, I would love for you to touch more so on like what leadership even means. But when you can tie that to like other aspects of your life, which I think people they don't associate that leadership is actually something that is so essential in all other aspects of our life, in our relationship, in how we show up, just in our day-to-day life. So would you care to really like go deeper and explain to our audience what exactly does leadership mean and why is that so important when it comes to us tapping into our greatness and stepping up and becoming the leader that we're meant to be?
Sure. I'll distinguish between management and leadership, because most people think of leadership as like more management. And then I'll give you my working definition of leadership. When I lead someone or I lead a group, what I'm doing. So, and I'm going to say this loosely, management is usually a manager seeks to get compliance, and a manager will generally focus on very easily observable things, behavior, and the output is usually measurable things. Leaders will tend to work with not so measurable things. And a leader's goal is more inspiration than compliance. So when a manager does something, someone may feel like, now I really want to get the job done. Or sorry, now I know exactly what to do and I'll get the job done. When a leader speaks, I want to get it done for my own reasons. Leadership without management, they're both critically important. Leadership without management tends to be dreamers. People who think these great things, but don't necessarily get things done. Not the worst thing ever around, but not that effective. Can be not that effective. Management without leadership, I tend to think of as like the DMV. I don't want to work there, but if I need a driver's license, I'm glad they're there.
Yeah.
But probably people listening to us right now are not dreaming of working in a bureaucracy where they can get, just get great benefits. Leadership and management together could be one person, could be a team. Sometimes someone's the leader, someone's the dreamer, someone else is the brass tacks, get things done. It can be done in lots of different ways, but make sure, and there's a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram. There's a lot of overlap between them.
Got it.
Leadership is based in social and emotional skills. How do you handle your own emotions? How do you perceive and influence the emotions of others? Just telling someone to do something, if you do it, I'll pay you. If you don't, I'll fire you. Carrots and sticks. You'll get people doing things, but not necessarily wanting to. They won't go the extra mile. You won't get loyalty. You won't get morality. You won't get places where people really love working. So my working definition for leadership is leadership is helping people do what they want to do, but haven't figured out how. If they know how to do it, they know what to do. They don't necessarily need leadership. In the area of the environment, virtually everyone in America is polluting more than anyone in history. They want to stop polluting so much. They don't want to hurt people, but they're kind of stuck doing it. They don't really know how to. They're in a system that was created at a time when we didn't think we could warm the globe. We didn't think we could fill the ocean with more fish, with more plastic than fish. So people, I believe, want clean air. They want clean water. They want clean land. They don't want their kids' IQs lowering because of heavy metals in the atmosphere or water. So this is an area where people really struggle to figure out how to change their behavior. And that's why I think leadership is so important in this area.
This is good. So leadership is defined as helping people do what they want to do, but they don't know how to do that yet. So here's my question, Josh, for you. I feel like a lot of our listeners listening right now may be thinking of the same thing, because I know I used to think the same way, like especially for like solo entrepreneurs, when they don't have a team yet, when it's just them and their business, they might feel like, oh, leadership doesn't apply to me because I don't have a team to lead. But I know that's not true, because we have to lead ourselves too, right? Leadership also applies when it comes to us. So how does that show up for like one person company?
So it's funny because now you're touching on one of my other great passions, which was my other book, Initiative, which is how do you find out in yourself what great passions you have. Most of us we've probably had an experience when we were a kid. I alluded to this when I said I was really good at science and I was nerdy as a youth. I was made fun of. I was picked on. People didn't take me seriously, and I wasn't invited to the cool parties. Well, most of us, one time when I was a kid, I wore a shirt that was a gift, and it was a silly shirt. And I wore it to school, and everyone was like, you got a silly shirt. And I felt really silly. And it was a problem I didn't like. I solved it very easily. I just never wore that shirt again. Well, what about something that's in your heart that you really care about? What if it's something you're born with that you can't change about yourself? you can't just not wear that shirt anymore. One of the things what many of us do is we protect ourselves from that vulnerability. We don't share that about us. We keep it hidden away. The more important it is to us, the more valuable it is to us. The more valuable it is, the more meaning it has, but also the more that we hide it. So most of us are living not our passions, not our great motivations. In fact, we're hiding those things. The challenge of getting these, and most of us don't even know it ourselves. When I teach entrepreneurship, and the beginning exercises in my book, which is based on the course, they walk you through a series of exercises that will get you to first identify in yourself directions that are important to you, and then to speak to people in a very specific way that gets people not to judge you, but to speak to you back in a supportive, non-judgmental way, which brings out and uncovers these passions. Now, at the beginning, even the most self-aware person probably won't catch what matters most to them. And simple introspection, meditation will generally not reveal the depth that you can get when you actually act on something it out in your life. So my book, I wasn't going to talk about it, but I mean, my book initiative will give you a bunch of exercises that will bring this out over and over again. They'll start with something that's not really important for them. And as they do it, as they go through the exercises, they realize, if I've succeeded this, actually what I want to do. And then they start realizing there's this other thing. If I can succeed at anything, I'd rather it be that. And over and over again. And I teach college all the way up to senior executives with gray hair, and they bought and sold businesses. And they often say to me, you mean I can work on that? I didn't realize I could do that. They think that you're supposed to do something that's going to be like some Silicon Valley engineers in their 20s, high growth, exit with the venture capitalists and so forth, IPO. That's one way to do things. But that's right for about 5% of the population. The other 95%, not very well served by the stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
So that kind of start something that you care about, or something. Doing something will lead you to what you care about most, more than passively thinking about it or just asking. Most people, you have to iterate. You have to do a lot of these things. Anyway, the exercises walk people through it.
That's awesome. And so that pretty much really reveals how leadership is so powerful, because you gotta lead yourself to identify those passions and what's important for you first before we can even support someone else to do the same thing. So awesome. So is there a specific way that we can just show up as a more powerful leader? Is there a strategy, a formula that you can share with us today that breaks down step by step?
Yeah. Although first I'm going to say, people should understand what Miko is doing, because she's doing it right now. I mean, they don't know the preparation. I don't know if maybe they do know the preparation that's gone into this, of you preparing me and preparing all the other different speakers. And I will bet any amount of money that what you get out of this is going to be way beyond anything. And just by doing these things, and anyone watching this, learn from her, probably get coaching from her of how to do it yourself. And you don't know what's going to come out of it. Maybe you'll love podcasting. Maybe you'll hate podcasting. I don't know, but you'll find out.
Yeah.
Now, my books are based on my courses. My courses are project-based experiential courses. And so they're based on a series of exercises where each exercise leads to the next. Just like if you learn to play piano, you start by playing scales. When you advance to the next level, then you start playing more simple pieces and then complex pieces. And eventually you reach mastery.
Mm-hmm.
So leadership step-by-step is a set of 20 exercises. There's one exercise that I do most commonly, which is my meaningful connection exercise. It's both social and emotional exercise. And it leads you to do something. Oh man, my whole life, I was so terrible about making connections. And I could tell you stories about when I try to meet people. I could exchange a business card, but that was very formal. But I couldn't really. There's a period in my life when several people right after each other, independent of each other, said to me, Josh, I feel like I know you. I've known you for a long time, but I don't really know the real you. I didn't like that. That's not how I wanted to be. So all the advice out there of how to make a meaningful connection was not useful for me. It's just like, be yourself and, ask them about, I don't know. I did a lot of small talk, weather, sports. So the meaningful connection exercise is an exercise that if you do it, you'll create a meaningful connection with someone. And I don't think we have time to do it here right now, but if you go to spodek.com/meaningful-connection, it's all laid out for you there. It's a chapter in my book. It's basically chapter 17, I think, in my book. Mm-hmm. And so it's there for anyone. It's got, and I added what's not in the book is like there's videos of me doing it with Marshall Goldsmith, who's one of my great mentors. And that's, if you practice it, you will get better at making meaningful connections with people. And people, after they meet you, will want to talk to you more. This is a great piece of leadership. It's not the only thing, but it is effective. It's not the only way to make a meaningful connection. But man, I cannot stand when I meet someone and I'm like, oh, so what do you do for a living? I'm like, oh, that's going to make a meaningless connection.
Oh, Josh. I'm so glad that you're bringing this up and really like encouraging listeners to take action, because like just by listening to this 30 to 45 minutes interview / workshop, it's powerful in itself, but they got to take the next step and really like go to the website, and I'll have that link inside of this email, and go do the homework. Like the magic happens in the actual implementation that they put in. So I'm glad that, we're not spilling all the secrets here inside this workshop. They should definitely go to the website and just like study into this meaningful connections process that Josh is going to teach you on the link. But before we go to talk more about this, I want to ask you, Josh, why is having a meaningful connection with another person so important when it comes to leadership? Why should we care?
Oh, do you have a couple hours for me to go on all the different reasons? I'll just say at the top, if you want to work in a team, if you want a really great team working together, you got to know what the other person's going to do in times of stress, in times of uncertainty, and you want them to know what you're going to do, which is to say you want to have each other's backs. You want to trust each other. If I don't really know why you're here, if I don't know what's really motivating you, if I don't know what's meaningful and purposeful for you, I can only guess. If I ask most people, if I ask you like, oh, what are your biggest hopes and dreams? I'm asking you to share I'm asking you to become vulnerable. And most people, if you simply ask them that, they're not going to answer you. Mm-hmm. So this exercise, it goes step by step to help you go through there's no way I could have done it except if someone said specifically, like, say this at this point, that at that point. And now the people that I have in my life, I don't want to overstate it, but virtually every relationship I have now is better for me than almost any relationship that I had before I started learning these things. At a time like this, when who knows how long we're going to be quarantined or mostly staying home, I don't want to call people up and ask, how's the weather over there? I mean, it's not going to hurt, but I really want to know how their hopes and dreams are coming along. And I want them to care about this for me. I want to have support for what I care about most. So if I make them feel comfortable sharing what makes them both vulnerable, but also passionate, it opens the door for them, for me. My relationships are based on what we care about, not just what we're superficially doing. Usually when you see if you look at someone's behavior, there's something, psychologists call it the fundamental attribution error. You think people are doing what you see them doing. But when a parent spanks a child, if you thought they just want to hurt the child, that's not what they're doing. They're helping the child. Mm-hmm. So if you misunderstand just based on someone's behavior, you can manage, but you can't lead. It's going to be tough to lead.
This is good because, at the end of the day, any type of business that we build, any type of like greatness that we create in our life, it all comes down to interactions and relationships with each other. It's always an interaction. Yeah, and with ourselves too. But without that meaningful connections, we cannot really like touch people in like a heartfelt way that is deep, that is going to move them, inspire them to take action. And like you said, those small talks and those like shallow conversations just doesn't move anyone to
Yeah.
feel inspired to do anything. And that would just never really get them to go from point A to point B where they want to go. So, wow, that's good. So how long would you say that it takes someone to master this craft of like being able to connect with people in a meaningful way? Like, does it take a long time to master this, or can we start today?
Well, to do that one exercise, I find like 5 or 10 times doing it, and each time takes
Mhm.
about 5 minutes, and it's usually a fun, joyful experience.
Mhm.
But that's just one exercise. It opens the door. You have to
Yeah.
keep doing what, I mean, that's chapter 17, there's chapter 18, chapter 19, chapter 20. So after you open that door, some big things are then to support people on what they care about. When people feel supported and you make them feel understood for these things, that takes things to a whole other level. So it might take, just to make the meaningful connection at the beginning, might take, I don't know, total practice time is half an hour to an hour, but all different people that you practice each time. But really to get to where your relationships are deeply meaningful and so forth. I mean, to some extent, you'll get something in the first couple hours. To
Mhm.
another extent, decades. I mean, you'll never run out of things to learn. I think that the best leaders on their deathbed, I think they're still saying, "Oh, I just figured something new out." No one's done.
That is so true. I resonate with that so much. Like, there is always something I want to learn more, and we are like constantly expanding and evolving. There's like never an end to what we are capable of.
Yeah,
So I
people who say they're bored right now, I can't. It's like,
yeah.
I remember being bored when I was a kid, but to be bored in a world with people, the people that we have, and all the problems that can be solved, all the
Mhm.
opportunities, to be
Mhm.
bored, it's shocking. I can't believe it. I mean, I can, but it's not where I am. It's not where, I doubt it's where you are or any of these listeners.
Yeah. There's just like so much that to soak in. There's just it gets exciting when we get on that train. But so Josh, I have a question for you. Um, so we touch on how meaningful connections can be so powerful when it comes to like with other people. So how has this showed up for you with your own connection to yourself by practicing these skill set of like developing meaningful connections? How have that like show up in your life? What has changed by, connecting with yourself in that meaningful way?
The work that I do, I believe is to me, it's the most important work I could possibly do. I love what I do. Now, look, with a PhD in physics and an MBA, I could go to Wall Street, even in times like this, and make a lot of money working at a bank, finance, or something like that. It's very marketable skills. Would that be making the world a better place? I'm not so sure. I love it. I mean, if you look at my podcast, I've had Moody's 3-time global managing director. I've had a Super Bowl winner. I've had bestsellers like Seth Godin and James Altucher. I've had the person with the most viewed TED Talk of all time. Like, these are my peers. Like that Nobel Prize winner, he's been over for dinner like 3 times. He doesn't go over to rich people's houses. He doesn't have to. He's a Nobel Prize winner. And he comes over because he likes my food. Because my food that I talked about before, it's, my famous no packaging vegetable stew. It's a joyful life. My life is about joy, connection, community, meaning, purpose, value. And I mean, the money is important. I've never missed paying a bill, but that's not, I'm not, my gravestone is not going to say, I don't know, he's got a big yacht. But as it happens, I hang out with people who have like some huge yachts, just because when you love what you do and you're good at it, then that's, I don't know how long you're going to keep podcasting, but probably it'll happen to you too. It will if you care. It won't if you don't care, if you're just doing it perfunctorily.
It's funny
Oh
because
yeah, I can't even, now I got to
yeah.
mention, sorry,
Go ahead.
because this is what we were talking about before we started recording, that hour, like now it's been about a little over an hour. So I'm going to share my screen because my 3rd TEDx talk just went online. And I'm so proud of this, that even here, I don't know if people can see that the little red line is only 10 minutes in, because it came out 36 views. Where's the time? where the time is, it's been up for like about an hour. And so I haven't even
Oh.
gotten to listen to this yet. But
Mm-hmm.
this is a heartfelt TED Talk. So it's my third. The first two were very deeply meaningful for me.
Mm-hmm.
But this third one, I gave it, it was February 29th or March 1st. And there were times when I was rehearsing this.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, there's one time I was going to visit a friend in Queens. I'm on the subway, and I'm not saying it out loud because it's in the subway, but I'm kind of going through the story that ends this TEDx talk about the people will know it's about the boat. I'm sitting in the subway, tears are streaming down my face as I'm thinking about, sorry, it catches me every time. It's just what motivates me and the people that I model myself after, my heroes, my role models in the past. These are my peers. It's the people who gave everything in the past for great things. And I think our time today requires great leadership. And I'm leading in this area. I'm doing the best I can. Am I Eisenhower or any of the great leaders from the past? I'm on my way. I hope to get there, or to be passed by people who are doing so much better. But right now, no one's doing it. And I think we crave leadership, to role models, to act on our environmental values and not just say, oh, well, government should do it, corporations should do it, but what I do doesn't matter. I want to rid the world of people thinking what I do doesn't matter. It's please never think that, and act to get past that.
Ah, Josh, that was so beautiful and such a good way for me to like transition into acknowledging you. Like I can feel your passion and your genuine desire to really step up and be the leader for so many other people, like right now for our listeners, and just coming on here being so generous with your time, with your gifts and your expertise. And like that is just giving so much value and creating such a big dent in our humanity to support us to rise up. And I just want to acknowledge you for that. Like it's been such an honor to have you. I'm so grateful to have people like you and the rest of the experts on this panel to really just give completely for free to the audience so that they can also rise up and tap into that greatness. Just want to say a thank you for that.
Well, I'll respond in two ways. One is that in this interaction, I'm following your lead, and I appreciate that because you contacted me and you're bringing out in me what you're bringing out. So I acknowledge and appreciate your leadership, and thank you. And in terms of, I'll just put this out. If someone goes to a meaningful connection exercise and they think, I want to learn this more effectively, if they do the work of it's very easy to find me online. If they find me, I'll give them half an hour of practice and just email me and say, I was on Miko's, or I listened to Miko's show, and then I'll do that.
That's amazing. That is so generous of you. And thank you, Josh, on behalf of my listeners and everyone. You got to take advantage of things like this. Like this is absolutely free value to support you. You got to say yes to yourself, say yes to your greatness, and just go ahead and connect with Josh. I will include all of his website. You have social media as well, Josh, on Instagram?
Yeah, I use Twitter. I'm Spodek, and on LinkedIn, Joshua Spodek. Yeah, easy to find.
Awesome. And I'll include all of that. I'll have all of Josh's contact information in the same exact email, as well as the link to the Meaningful Connection exercise, so you can go do your homework and stay connected with Josh. So before we wrap this up, is there any last words that you would like to share with our audience today before we finish?
Well, there are a lot of problems in the world today, and there's a lot of solutions, and most people are shying away from the solutions. On my podcast, I've had guests who, by doing the things that everyone says, oh, it's not worth doing, they rise to leadership positions in places like Google and Apple and GE and Patagonia and the federal government and places like that. The opportunity to take the lead in the area of the environment, you could just pass it by and just say, whatever, I'll just follow. But the leadership opportunities, this is maybe the biggest area to become a chief sustainability officer or to start your own company or something like that. The opportunities are huge. Please lead in the area of the environment. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. I wish we lived in a world where this wasn't happening, but we're all under lockdown right now. This is not by any means the last big challenge humanity is going to face. We crave leadership. Act.
Oh, this is good. Yes. Ending this really with the emphasis on taking action, because you can have the most amazing gifts in you, the most abilities to lead, but without taking the action, it's just gonna stay buried. So I hope you guys took away some amazing, powerful wisdom and insights from this interview today with Josh. And I will see you guys tomorrow for the next bonus episode. Thank you again, Josh.
Thank you, Miko.